Starving yourself is one of the worst things you can do if you're trying to lose belly fat. In today's video, I'm going to tell you why you should be eating more to lose that belly fat. What's up, guys? Rich here from To Fix Your Brotherhood. Now, I've been coaching men for over 15 years, and I can confidently say one of the biggest mistakes I typically see men make is they simply just don't take in enough calories. Now, yes, it's a good short-term play because you're going to lose a shitload of weight, obviously. However, it's going to slow down our metabolism, and it's actually going to wreck us in the long term. So in today's video, what I'm going to really teach you and help you with is we're going to break down what metabolism is, that we understand it, and you'll get why eating less is a bad strategy. And then for the most important stuff, of course, we're going to talk about how to do it. So how many calories you should be taking in, how much protein, how to train, and this is going to all add up, and this is going to be like an aha moment for you, and you're going to see why eating more can be actually the best thing in terms of losing that belly fat. Now let's get into it. Okay, to understand basic fat loss, it's very straightforward. It's basic calories in, how many calories we consume, pretty straightforward, minus calories out. Now, this has been the tricky part, and this is what we're gonna talk about today because this is gonna make up your metabolism. This is basically your metabolism and what affects calories out. And when you basically say, I have a slow metabolism, you're basically saying your body's not doing a good job of burning calories, and this basically makes up it. And like I said, we're gonna break this down. I'm gonna tell you how to fix it. That way you burn fat for the rest of your life, no matter what age you're at. So, your BMR, I'm going to break these all down just a minute here, don't worry. 70%, your NEAT 10 to 15%, thermally effective food 10%, exercise only 5 to 10%. Now to give you a bit of an analogy, kind of really paint a picture in terms of importance, let's say you're going to a steakhouse or a restaurant, whatever it may be, and you order a steak. The steak's the main thing you're going to focus on, right? That's what you want. The BMR is the steak of this equation. Now the NEAT, this is going to be your sides, like, so like your potatoes, your broccoli, whatever it may be. Your thermally effective food, this is gonna be your appetizer and your dessert. So, a good part to have, of course, in the meal. And the exercise, you could have it, you could not. It's still important in terms of protecting muscle, which we'll talk about a little bit after. And this is gonna make up 5-10% of how many calories you burn in a given day. Now, BMR, I'm sure you've heard the term basal metabolic rate, 70%. And what's a big factor that makes up BMR? It's gonna be your muscle. And if you don't focus on muscle enough, you're not really training properly, eating properly, or starve yourself, in this case we're talking about today's video, this is going to directly impact your BMR, and your calories are going to burn a lot less. Now think of BMR this way. Let's say you're in a coma, or maybe a more practical example, let's look at Sunday, you wake up, you don't do anything, just lie in your bed basically all day and you don't move. Your BMR is basically going to be how many calories you burn without doing anything. So for me, like NFL Sunday, my BMR is going to be put to the test pretty good because I'm on my ass watching football all day long. So 70% of how many calories you burn is basically just by keeping the lights on your body, and that's your BMR. Your NEAT, this is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So basically just kind of like involuntary movement that you don't think about. So even for me, you kind of see I'm talking with my hands a lot and it's kind of like fidgeting. I'm an Italian hand talker, that's kind of the way to do it. This makes up 10 to 50%. And again, we're gonna talk about why starving yourself will affect this as well. So these are the main two things. The third thing is gonna be the thermic effect of food. Not get down too much of like a nerd rabbit hole here, but basically anytime we consume food in, we burn calories / energy as we consume the food. Now protein is going to burn a little bit more compared to carbs and fats. I'm not going to get too much in detail in today's video, maybe a little bit, but that's going to be 10%. And then exercise, again, I think a lot of people think exercise is like 90 to 100% of it. It's only 5 to 10% of how many calories we burn in a given day. Okay, now that you know what this is in terms of what makes up your metabolism, we can really talk about now why starving yourself is going to affect all these 4 things. So remember I talked about the very first thing in terms of your BMR, that muscle is a big role in it. When we starve ourselves, guess what's going to happen? We're going to lose muscle and this number is going to drop. So this is why, let's say you lost weight in the past or lost fat in the past, maybe you started off great, however, we lowered our basal metabolic rate, and because we starved ourselves, and because of that, we lost muscle, and it just makes burning calories a lot harder to do in the future. So starving yourself can directly impact your BMR because you're going to lose muscle mass if you're not taking in enough calories. The second thing it's going to affect is your needs. So it's actually shown that men, or anyone obviously, if you eat less, you're subconsciously going to move less. I'm sure you know, right? Like when you're dieting or you're not taking enough calories, you feel more lethargic, you feel more tired. So it's going to directly impact this. In a cool little study, it was actually shown that men who had about 1,000 calories more compared to another group actually lost the same amount of fat, for some people at least. And the reason being was the NEAT. So it compensates. When you eat more, you basically have more energy. You're going to kind of move more. When you don't eat, this number goes down and it just kind of compensates for the lower calorie number. Now, this wasn't the case for every single person, but there's some individuals that did see that. But my point being is when you starve yourself, you don't have enough calories, this number is going to drop. You're not going to move as much. You're going to feel more lethargic. The third thing that's going to drop your thermoeffective food. So remember I kind of talked about protein in terms of it's a little bit higher in terms of burning calories compared to carbs and fats. Well, when we're starving ourselves, we typically just don't get enough protein. Like, let's be honest. Like if we're having like 1,500 calories, we're probably not going to be getting 150 grams of protein a day. And when we don't get enough, grams of protein per day, this will affect how many calories we are burning and digesting out. And it also kind of ties back as well. If we don't get that protein, back to the BMR, not enough weight training, that's gonna be not enough calories, not enough protein, and that's gonna affect how much muscle we have, which is gonna lower our metabolism. And the fourth thing is just exercise. And I'm sure you know, like in a fat loss phase, when you're cutting your calories, your workouts probably aren't as good as if you're maintaining. You just feel a little more tired, feel more lethargic. And the worst thing you can do is starve yourself, because it's going to directly impact obviously how much weight you're lifting, and you're just going to feel more sluggish in your workouts. So this will also affect your exercise rate here. So this kind of breaks down basically why starving yourself is going to affect all four categories in terms of your metabolism. Now, before we get into the good stuff in terms of setting your calories, your protein, your workouts to make sure your metabolism is running like a 25-year-old and you're burning calories at ease, I really want to tie a ribbon on why starving yourself is a bad idea. If you want to skip this, feel free to skip the chapter. You'll see in the link. But just to kind of give you a bit of an example here, why starving yourself such a bad idea is what happens is when you starve yourself and you lose a lot of weight fast. Yeah, I'm sure you know the first couple months you're gonna drop weight fast, but then you might notice like it gets a lot harder to lose weight after. You might be thinking why? Well, the reason being is our body tries to hold on to fat stores and preserve our weight if we're just cutting calories way too fast, because it's kind of like, what the fuck's happening right now? Think back to our ancestor day. Like we never knew when the next meal was. So what happens is we're really trying to lower, how much we're moving around. We're trying to preserve how many calories we're burning because we don't want to starve to death and we don't want to starve ourselves. So it's exact same traits, obviously we have now, just at a less extreme example, but it's the same idea. If we're just cutting our calories way too much, it's really gonna affect all these four things I talked about. And it just makes losing fat a lot harder to do in the long run. Okay, now that we kind of tied a ribbon on that, let's talk about the fun stuff, because I want you to make sure you're coming out of this video and you know exactly what to do and to make sure your metabolism is running nice and fast no matter what age you're at. Calories, the very first thing we're gonna talk about is calories. So if you're a 220 pound man, whatever it may be, the last thing you wanna do is be having like 1,800 calories a day, because I would definitely categorize that as starving yourself. So a very general rule of thumb I like to calculate for calories is body weight in pounds, let's say you're 200 pounds, nice round number, times by 10 to 11. So 200 times 10, 2,000 calories per day, times 11, 2,200 calories per day roughly. Well, my math might be off there. It depends how much you move. If you're not walking a lot, times by 10. If you're walking a lot, you can even times by 11 to 12, depending on how many steps you're getting. So that's the very first thing you need to dial in is your calories. And that's gonna affect, of course, all these four things. The second thing you're gonna dial in is your protein, because if you don't have protein, this lowers, and even, let's just exercise. The thermoeffective food, the BMR is going to lower in terms of this part of the equation. And for protein, it's going to be body weight in pounds times about 0.8. So if you're 200 pounds, times roughly by 0.8, and you want to aim for about 160 grams per day. If that seems like a shitload, don't worry. Build your way up to it. I know it's a lot, especially if you're eating only, let's say, 80 to 100 grams per day. But that's the second thing you're going to need to make sure your metabolism's running nice and good right there. And the third thing that you're gonna need in terms of keeping your metabolism high is make sure you're focusing on weight training. Because a lot of times, men especially, we focus only on this part of the equation, and what do? It's a lot of cardio, a lot of burning calories, we're just trying to sweat it out, but it only makes up 5 to 10% of how many calories we burn. What we wanna focus on is this number. And what do? And what's the main factor of this? Is muscle, and if we're training properly and we're protecting our muscle in the gym, this number stays high. If our calories are too low, if we're doing a ton of cardio, we're not focused on weight training, this again goes way down, and it just makes losing fat a lot harder to do. So to recap this, guys, BMR, this is the number you want to focus on in terms of how to lose fat the rest of your life. If you're focused on this number and not this number, it's gonna make losing fat a lot harder to do in the long term. So by doing this, making sure you're not starving yourself, neat. When the calories are higher, this typically improves. Now, there's obviously a U-shaped curve, right? If you have 6,000 calories a day, like you're not going to lose fat. So hopefully you get what I'm saying there. Thermoeffective food, of course, make sure your protein is dialed in. And typically speaking, when we increase our calories, it's easier to get more protein. And the exercise kind of separate from the calories we talked about today. But just make sure you are focusing on weight training, because weight training is going to affect this number, which is going to make your metabolism running a lot better and smoother. Now, if you want more tackle tips in terms of actually, lose the love handles and lose that stubborn belly fat, I'll definitely link it at the end right here and you're going to see it. But I hoped this helped, and I hope you enjoyed today's video, and thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, drop in the comments below, and we'll talk soon.